and carry oxygen through your body, through your bloodstream. All of our cells need oxygen. So if we have sickle cell anemia, the structure of our red blood cells doesn't necessarily allow us to carry oxygen throughout our body to our cells, to oxygenate our body. Yes, Ruby?
So is it basically they don't make the whole blood cell? Like,
Yes, so I'm not sure which type of mutation that is specifically, but what happens is, let's draw a picture. Here is a red blood cell without sickle cell anemia. And in the middle we have our hemoglobin, which holds onto our oxygen. It goes in there and it holds onto it and it transports it throughout our body. With sickle cell anemia, the cells are shaped like this. So this whole center part and the other half can be missing, right? Which makes it really, really hard for those red blood cells to carry oxygen. Yes, Jack?
are all of them shaped like that, or just some of them?
I believe it is just some of them. Do you know? It's just some of them, yes. I think if all of the red blood cells were shaped that way, I don't think that the body would be able to carry enough oxygen in order to support life. Yes? No?
The farming tool is called a sickle. Is that why they call it a sickle? Because it looks like a sickle?
Absolutely. Yep.
No, just a random name.
Sickle, fish shaped thing. All right, but something is really interesting. Let's bring our focus forward in 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Something is really interesting about sickle cell anemia. Did anybody catch it in the video? So let's relate this to what we just did. Let's relate this to what we just did. Here's our Punnett square. Parent 1, parent 2. Let's say parent 1 is a carrier. Well, let's think about this. If you get the trait, if you get that gene or that allele from one parent and not from the other, and you don't end up getting the trait, do you think it's dominant or recessive?
Recessive.
It is recessive. You guys are awesome. So let's use an A for anemia. Parent 1 has sickle cell anemia. Parent number 2 does not. So we have homozygous recessive on parent 1. Parent number 2, we have homozygous dominant. Right? So this parent would have sickle cell anemia. If we played out our Punnett square, what would end up happening is that all 4 squares would be heterozygous. So the offspring would have one trait or one allele of sickle cell anemia and then one that does not have sickle cell anemia. In that case, the offspring would be a carrier, right? It would be a carrier, but it would not be affected. But what is the benefit? What happens in that case? Chris, what happens?
The symptoms from malaria aren't as severe.
Absolutely. You get malaria resistance.
So you want one of your parents to have that?
Not necessarily.
It's like, Mom, I want you to not be able to breathe.
Yeah, let's just go around and start
Just so that
injecting
I don't
people
get
with the allele for sickle cell anemia. No, that'd probably be a bad idea, right? Because then we would have more carriers, and if you have 2 carriers and then they have an offspring, then that child will also. Right? But I like the way your brain's thinking. Making lemons out of lemonade. So underneath, making lemonade out of lemons. That'd be incredible, like a magic trick if you could make lemons out of lemonade.
Make oranges out of lemonade, man.
That'd be cool.
That would be pretty sweet.
Don't you make lemonade out of
So-
like oranges or something?
Thinking positive. It's a Friday. All right. Let's bring focus back forward in 3, 2, 1. Thank you. All right, so let's write underneath. We have what's an example of a good mutation, what's an example of a bad mutation, and then what's an example of a neutral mutation. So now we've said 2 beneficial or good mutations, right? One is being a sickle cell anemia carrier, but not having both alleles. So basically 1 allele of sickle cell anemia, or half sickle cell anemia, is beneficial. So I'll write that down, half. Half. And then why is this beneficial? Go ahead and write it down.
Well, sickle cell
I have so many cells.
Anemia.
Unless you're selling something.
Cell.
If you're selling something, then it starts with an S. All right, so we have an example of a good mutation. On the other hand, what would be an example of a bad mutation? If you have sickle cell anemia, that could be an example of a bad mutation, or one that can be harmful. But we have some more examples. Some other examples of mutations that can be harmful to the body are cystic fibrosis. When this occurs, this means that actually the lungs, right? You have lung sacs called alveoli that expand and breathe in oxygen. You have too much mucus within your lungs, and it inhibits this process. Another one's called muscular dystrophy, and this is when your muscles have a hard time developing, or you have muscular, what's called atrophy, right? The opposite of building muscle. So it's the breaking down of muscle tissue that you can help. And then you have Huntington's disease. So Huntington's disease is an atrophy or breaking down of the brain cells. Brain cells.
Brains.
Some other more common mutations are having two sets of eyelashes, or having freckles. Freckles are a mutation. Having red hair is a mutation. And then you guys remember what a genome is? All of the chromosomes put onto, this is a genome, right? So in this genome, underneath the 21st chromosome pair, right, there's a third one. There's not just two. This is called trisomy 21. Does anybody know what else this is called? Trisomy 21. Has anyone heard of it? This is Down syndrome. This is Down syndrome. The only difference is that you have an extra chromosome underneath the 21st one. Yeah.
Why don't you have all of these except for Down syndrome?
Have all of these. That is way over my head. I have no idea. Maybe you could study microbiology and then you could understand it, and then one day you could tell me.
I'm curious.
Absolutely.
Hold
Yeah.
on, what is trisomy again?
Cure for gingivitis.
Well, let's answer that question and then we'll move on. Trisomy is when you have three, right? So the rest of these, they have a pair. They have one from mom, one from dad. One chromosome from mom, one from dad for all of the pairs. But underneath the 21st pair, trisomy means rather than having a pair, you have three. Just like a tricycle has three wheels. Trisomy, three chromosomes.
Gives you
Down syndrome is trisomy 21. So on the first.
And what is Down syndrome?
Down syndrome. It is. How do you explain Down syndrome? It is a syndrome that can affect physical appearance. It can affect people with Down syndrome tend to be more positive thinking. They tend to be a little bit more optimistic. People with Down syndrome, some of the time, a lot of the time, can have a slight delay in their cognitive abilities. It can affect a lot of different things.
I was about to say,
Yes.
I don't have Down syndrome.
Hold on, I'm trying to hear a question. Let's quiet down, thank you.
How do you pronounce the double set of eyelashes?
There's a reason why I didn't say it. It's because I don't know how to say that. Diastasis. You could probably just say duh
There
and then
is no L in there, no.
Close enough.